What up, world peace? What's going on? Welcome. I am Yafeth, aka YGT Records. I got my boy Rich on the side. What's going on, Rich?
Peace. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Doing really good. Especially now, as y'all can see down below, we have a very talented artist with us, Eloquent. What's going on, man?
Good. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. How are you doing today, man? How's your day?
It's been a good day, man. Just in the process of wrapping up my next record.
Ooh.
So kind of in that annoying mixing, arranging, overthinking part of the process, but almost at the finish line. So it's been a good day.
It's funny. People always kind of complain about like the final stages of the whole album part. Is mixing really that bad? I'm kind of a noob to it. I don't know.
Um, I mean, I guess everyone sort of has their own experience or their own take on it. Personally, I hate it because it's the fun part is just taking sounds and chopping them and putting them together and doing the drums or getting the vocalists and have them get busy on it. But the very end, when you're trying to structure it into like a cohesive project, and and you're mixing, and they got to run to the car to do the car test, and they got to come back, and like something I might think sounds really good in the headphones, sounds like trash in the car, so then it's back to the drawing board. It's I mean, I say I hate it in the sense that it's my least favorite part of the process, but like I still enjoy the whole thing. But it's definitely the part I look forward to the least because I'm kind of just anxious. I want to submit it, and get the wheels turning on manufacturing or whatever the next step is, and I want to move on to the next. And it's kind of just that albatross just hovering over you, that just doesn't want to let you move on. But eventually we'll get there.
Cool. I'm glad you said like the car test versus the headphone test. I have albums where I'm glad you actually said it because now I know I'm not crazy. I'm like, yo, this sounds dope in the car, but in the headphones it sounds weird. I'm like, what's going on? So I'm glad you did bring that up. Like,
No, that's definitely a real thing,
yeah.
and most engineers will tell you, like before you release it or put it out, just listen to it on as many different mediums as you can. Because like producers especially, like, I mean, you're used to just making shit in front of monitors, which are you hear things in a certain clarity in a certain way, but yeah, you kind of have to remember that a lot of people listen to your music at the gym just with headphones, and especially going to the headphones, it can be a completely different experience altogether. So you kind of have to decide, where your audience is. I mean, if you're making shit for the club, you definitely want to make sure you hear that shit on big speakers because it doesn't hit the same in the headphones as on
Right.
big speakers.
I've heard someone say before, I'm not gonna mention names, but I've heard someone say that if your music doesn't sound good on some like rinky dink iPhone speakers, then it's not good at all. Do you agree with that?
I mean, for me, I most well, I guess it's an interesting thing because like I get complimented a lot in terms of my mixing, which baffles me because that's not my lane at all. But it's always like the audio engineers and the folks who like really listen to their shit like closely and pick it apart. Those are always the folks who tell me the truth about
Mm,
how not good my shit is. But 90% of my audience, they're listening to them on you know on I like the earbuds that you get with your smartphone, and obviously it's not the same sonic fidelity as like studio headphones or studio speakers. So, I always try to, if nothing else, make sure it passes the shitty airphone test. And if you can if you can make your shit sound okay there, then at least it's a little better than if it sounds kind of trash elsewhere. In my opinion, anyways.
Okay. Rules to live by. Cool, cool, cool. So for me, I got hip to you in 2019. So I'm not an OG, but still, finding artists whenever is still always great. And I actually found you on Twitter. I remember somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody was tweeting about you and your release of Blessings in Disguise. So that was the first time I actually did hear you, listen to it. Then I found out it was a beat tape, and I was like, oh hell yeah, I love beat tapes. That's my thing. And the more I got used to you, all your other releases, we're like one of those artists where your name kind of fits the style of the sound, at least for me. Because when you think somebody is eloquent, they're expressive, they're persuasive. I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of a weirdo, but for some reason I kind of feel that when I hear the music. so
I,
I, I'm kind
I'm
of
glad you feel that way.
you do cool, cool, yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, did you give yourself that name? Did somebody give it to you? Like why'd you pick that name?
um, so flashback all the way to let's see, I was in second or third year of high school, so that would have been about 2003, 0203, somewhere in that ballpark. Um, Actually, it was originally a rap name. Just before really sort of cutting my teeth on doing beats. I had aspirations of rapping, and basically, like, my last name is Alango, and the first three letters of it are ELA. So I had decided at the time that whatever my moniker was going to be, I wanted to make sure it incorporated those three letters. So, I toyed with a few different options. Eloquent, obviously the one we went with. It could have been Element, uh, or whatever cool word I could think of that had it in. And actually, the original name was Ella's Son, which was,
Oh,
the first three letters of my last name, first three letters of my first name. And what happened was, I entered an MC battle back in like '03 or so, and when they were announcing me to get up on stage, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, homie, what's your name?" I'm like, Ellison. Ella, what? Yeah, yeah, it's Ellison. And like I'm on stage, and I have to like spell it out for the fucking MC. And at that point, I'm like, okay, this is too much work. I can't be like repeating myself 8 times. Let me just pick a word that's an actual word and it's easy to remember. I'll just flip the spelling of it a bit. And eloquent. I just thought, oh, okay, well, like rapping is an expressive thing. That it sort of made sense. And years later, after you know my rap dreams long fizzled out, um, I, for whatever reason, I just opted to keep the name. And in retrospect, I probably should have just kept my government name as a moniker. But I had it, and I'd already sort of built a bit of a reputation with it. So it's like, fuck it, I'm at that point of no return. Let's roll with it. I've since sort of modified the meaning of it to me, but the base of it is, it has elements of my last name in it.
okay, cool, that works. So how long have you been making music now?
Um, well, it's kind of a two-part answer. Now, from the first time I ever made a beat, then I guess that would put me back to about 99, 2000, something like that. So I guess it's been a little over 20 years. But as far as when I considered myself good, or whenever I considered myself like confident enough to share my music publicly outside of like my older brother, um, then I'd probably put it closer to about 2000 and maybe 2006, 2007, give or take.
Okay. Was music always the plan for you?
Um, I mean, as a kid, I have an older brother, and um, and like growing up, like rapping was always this thing, and I always kind of I wanted to be like my older brother. Didn't really have the chops for rapping. I got kind of a weird voice, so it was never going to work out. But I always kind of just loved, um, I love beats. And I'm naturally more of like a behind the scenes kind of guy, so I always gravitated more to it. Um, I never thought that, you know, I would. I never thought that in 20 years I'd be doing it, and I'd have a name, and there'd be records with my name on it, and so forth. For me, it was always just something fun that I wanted to do. Obviously, I never had the money for like an MPC or something, but luckily, I discovered like Fruity Loops and just software in general when I did. And at the time, I figured, okay, well, this will be kind of a cool thing to keep myself entertained, and I can show off to some of the homies. And my goal at the time was just to sell a beat. Like I wasn't concerned with who it was, but being able to say I got money off of music, that was that was an aspirational thing for me when I was like 13. But every time you sort of reach a goal, you sort of find a new goal to chase. So it became, okay, let me just sell a beat. Okay, well, let me try to get a placement. Well, let me try to put an album together. Well, let me try to get pressed on vinyl or CDs or tapes. Hey, well, maybe it'd be cool to do a live show. Well, all my favorites kind of toured. That's kind of a cool thing to do. And and kind of one thing led to another. But if you ask me back in like 2000 what my goals were, it would have just been to just have fun with it.
Okay, cool. Does it ever trip you out, like if you're ever at a store or like a record shop to actually see like your stuff on there? Does it ever trip you out?
Honestly, it's and I've been in the game for, I guess, quote unquote professionally for about 15 or so years. I've actually never had that experience
Oh,
of personally walking into a store and seeing, or like going through like the hip hop section and pulling up one of my records. Like, I know that there's certain stores that have them, and maybe it says more about where I specifically live, but I haven't had that moment yet. Um, so I'm sure I'll get like pretty emotional whenever that day comes. But the idea that there's somebody out there in, I don't know, like Poland or some shit, who has one of my records, and actually paid money for it, like that's a trip, because that was never the original plan. That was never something I ever dreamed of. And it always felt like the guys who do music and make a living from it are kind of just in this mythical tier, or this position that's unobtainable. Like I come from a small city. There's not really like a rap scene or anything like that here. And the the idea or the thought was, well, if you're trying to make it, you got to go to New York, or you got to go to LA, or you got to go to one of these big cities, or at the very least Toronto. And I'm a small town guy, so that's never something I ever thought at the time was possible until it was possible. So yeah, no, definitely a trip.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, if it wasn't for music for you, where do you like what do you think you'd be doing?
That's a good question. I mean, that's kind of one of those things I'm still trying to figure out. Um, Obviously, with the pandemic, um, you know, you're kind of forced to pivot and sort of look at your mortality, and it's like, well, I don't know how long this is going to last for. I don't know when I'm going to get back to shows or just life as I knew it before. If this is to end, or if people don't like me anymore, or whatever the case is, what's next? What do I do? And and honestly, I don't know. I can honestly say I don't know. Um, there's definitely there's definitely jobs and so forth you can do, but you know my my number one passion has always been music. And if it's not music, I mean, I love martial arts movies,
Oh,
but I don't know if there's like a career for me there, in that sense. But you know, I guess I try not to think too deeply in terms of sort of some of the what ifs.
hmm.
And while I'm in this position, let me kind of do the best I can with it. And if it all goes away, sort of cross that bridge once I get to it.
Right, right. What's your favorite martial arts movie?
Ooh, man, I could move my webcam and just show you
You have
like
a whole collection?
a piece of my collection, but it's probably like 600 deep, 700 deep. I mean, if you ask me this question an hour from now, I might give you a completely different answer. But
That's how I know you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, and when I say I'm a martial arts movie fan, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like I've seen a ton of these movies. Like I know these Chinese actors by name. Like I'm a little bit of a historian. Like I know when, like, the years things have come out, and I know who the fight choreographers are, and
Damn.
like I recognize names on the credit rolls and shit like that. But to answer your question off the top of my head, probably the OG Jackie Chan Drunken Master.
Oh yeah, good pick, good pick.
Yeah, probably that one.
So I wanted to ask you earlier this year, I believe it was in February. I'm pretty sure February. Comfort food.
Right.
The collaborative beat tape that I really did enjoy. You took care of two of the beats on there, one of them being the official. Definitely dope what you did on it. I really digged it. Of course,
Thank
the whole thing was dope too. I want to know, how did you feel about, having a chance to reimagine, one of Dilla's beats, one of Madlib's beats, and just like how the whole process was for you.
Yeah, I mean that joint in question, the official one, that one's actually a little it's an old song. Like I did that in like 2015, 2016.
Mm,
And when Boom Baptist hit me up with the idea of comfort food, I was kind of like, well, I don't know, like this joint's like some folks have heard it before, and I don't know if I don't know if anyone's going to get excited about hearing it again. But then you realize, like, well, you know, a lot more people know who I am now than they did in 2014. So for many of them, they were hearing it for the first time. Um, but I think, and at the time, sort of going back to 2014 or 2015 or whenever it was, every February, you kind of see the influx of Dilla tributes, and and I've done my share of them over the years, and on that particular occasion, I always thought it would be fun to sort of flip it a different way. So instead of and I mean, I guess if you want to get technical, I mean that's really a Mad Lib flip, more so than Dilla. Obviously, I use some of his vocals in it, but like just they had such a unique chemistry on that J-Lib record, and instead of just flipping like another Dilla sample, like, well, it'd be cool. I mean, this is my favorite song off of Champion Sound. So I'll flip the same sample that Madlib used, but in that sample, um, is another one of Jay's classics. So I'm always intrigued by sort of using two. I mean, I guess it's the same, but in essence, two different samples on the same record and sort of blending them and making them fit. So I can put the official and then squeeze in a little Fall in Love in there. And just by pure coincidence, that that little vocal from the Red just
Yep.
fit right over it like a glove. And, I was really excited about it until I posted up on SoundCloud back in the day, and apparently Stone's Throw wasn't a big fan.
Ooh.
They actually had pulled. I I don't know if someone actually made the call, or if it was like an automated thing that tripped up in their system. But it was weird getting that email from SoundCloud that said that Stone's Throw wanted it removed.
Damn.
It's like,
Hmm.
well, I guess I'm probably not going to get on their radar anytime soon.
On the hit
But
list now.
maybe I, you know, if Peanut Butter Wolf, if you ever watch this, I'm sorry. It's all good. Um, but no, but that was definitely one of my favorites. One of my favorite remixes, and just that opportunity to do Comfort Food was a great chance just to sort of give it a new audience. And and while I'm happy that that song was received as well as it was, with that project I was more excited that that folks, like, I was hoping folks would would peep that album and buy it, supporting me, but in the process get familiar with Boom Baptist and especially Juicy the Emissary, because those guys are incredible at what they do. And if a byproduct of me gives them a little more light, then that immediately made it worth it.
Cool, man. That's really awesome. Especially like one of my favorite parts in that song is definitely how you added, of course, the red. Like when that part came on, man, that's when it hit me. I was like, yes, I love this. This is really really nice.
I mean, I was gonna go extra because, like I said, like that sort of came about just by accident. You know, like sometimes I'm making beats and I might have like the TV on in the background or something, or like audio may come up on my phone, and for a split second you can kind of just hear it overlapping over what you're
Ah,
doing, and I'm like, oh, that just gave me a genius idea, and then you sort of flesh it out. I mean, I was gonna go and well, shit, maybe I can find something else off the J-Lib album to sample in, and maybe I can just make this song like a whole just melting pot of J-Lib. But you never want to like overproduce the shit. So it's like, all right, let me fall back and let the shit breathe.
right on. Cool. You also had a go at the Baker's Dozen, which was another great one. Of course, I think it was last year they released the very last edition of the Baker's Dozen.
Right.
So that series is officially done, and you're a part of it. That's pretty cool. Um,
That that blows my mind, honestly, because the like one of my good homies, mentor, whatever you want to call him, the homie DiBiase.
Oh,
He was well, like he was the debut one, and he, I mean, he let me listen to it like a few months before it came out, and I think at the time he told me that yeah, it's supposed to be like a whole series, and I think Obliv was next up, and like I hit up the homies at Fat Beats, and and kind of just pitched like, hey, I don't know if you guys take submissions, but I'd love to be part of it. Kind of half expecting them to be like, nah, we already picked out everybody, so thanks, but no thanks. And kind of to my surprise, they're like, yeah, 1 sec, let me just reach out to some folks. Yeah, everyone fucks with you. Send us some shit. We'd love to have you. And you know, I didn't really like, I wasn't really prepared for the yes. Like, when you sort of shoot your shot, like expecting that girl to turn you down, and then to your surprise, she's like, yeah. And then it's like, oh shit. Well, damn, let me get some new clothes and upgrade my cologne, or whatever you got to do. And so with that record, I mean, I had a handful of joints, and I mean, some of them were just old ones from the vault, like some as far back as like 2012, 2013. And I'm very self-critical of my own shit. And I think all artists have a little perfectionist in them. And so, the one thing I'm scared of is, I don't want to be the guy who has the reputation as having like the worst project out of the bunch. And I mean, and you go through the list, and it's DiBiase, it's Obliv, Suff Daddy, Buddha Monk,
yep.
motherfucking Derringer. Like,
Oh yeah, I forgot he was there
like
too. Yeah.
yeah, like there's some heavy hitters on this. Exile, Ross
Right,
G,
right.
R.I.P. to the big bro.
Yeah.
And and it's like, I don't need to be the best. I just let me not just be the one at the very bottom who brings the whole shit down. And whether I was or wasn't, I mean, I guess I'll let people decide that for themselves. But yeah, no, that record was really, really well received, and that kind of overwhelmed me. And yeah, I'm super grateful that I even got that opportunity to do it.
One
Absolutely.
question
But
one question that I wanted to go and ask is, besides we talked about Dilla, you have an association with DiBiase. There's kind of a couple questions.
Right.
The first one is, who was the biggest impact on your art and your music? And the second thing is that I've always seen you as having kind of like that association with the LA guys.
Mhm.
Have you considered, at some point when everything clears up, like locating? Has that ever been a consideration for you?
Well, I guess I'll answer them sort of one by one. So as far as like my influences, listening to my sound, you can probably make a pretty educated guess as to where a lot of my influences come from, and it's all the usual suspects. Dilla, Madlib, Pete Rock, RZA, Eric Sermon, all those guys. So there's little traces of all of them if you really, really dive in, especially like my older stuff. Nowadays, most of my inspiration comes from my peers. So whether it's DiBiase, or it's like mind design, or knowledge, like I see with the no worries poster in the back. Like
yeah.
that's dope. And yeah, I I love all those guys, and it's tough sometimes because I get influenced by so many things, and sometimes you sort of lose yourself, and trying to sort of emulate or sort of stray closer to what you just listened to. But yeah, definitely influences all around. As far as LA and the idea of relocating, the idea has been pitched to me a number of times. Um, at least back in the day, I wasn't really interested in relocating for a few reasons. Mostly, like I got a whole life and everything firm here, and staying close to my family and parents has been an important thing for me. Um, and I've always sort of been of the opinion that simply going to LA, and that's kind of the popular thing that every music or every musician considers to make it. And I don't feel like going to LA automatically solves your problems, or will you know take you straight to the top, so to speak. I always sort of like the idea of kind of being like the one kid not from LA
Yeah.
who has like that LA clout. Like
Yeah.
whenever I go out there, like folks treat me like royalty, and it's all love, and just so many of the homies out there. But there's a little romance and being a little bit of an outsider, and when you do go, it feels more special because folks don't see you and get tired of you when
Mhm.
you're there and in their face every day.
Familiarity breeds contempt kind of
For
situation.
sure, for
Mhm.
sure. Now that
Yeah.
being said, looking back, and once presented with new information, you can always change your mind. So these are conversations I'm sort of um restarting, and I'm thinking of the pros and cons, and obviously I haven't decided anything yet, but never say never. Never say never.
Cool. So I wanted to take it back to comfort food real quick because
Right?
one thing too that I really love about it is the album art. The box of donuts, kind of playing with the whole Dilla theme. Love that really like a ton. And I've always had a strong appreciation for album art, especially when artists take it seriously and really try to just make something that either relates to the music or just make some art. Period.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm curious for you too, just even for your projects, like how do you even decide like what the album art is gonna be?
Man, it's a process. It's a process. Because I try not to just make a record and then finish it and then kind of just search for art. At least I did that a lot early in my career. Nowadays, I like before I even make the first beat or the first song. I open like my notepad app, and I'm just brainstorming ideas, like what type of story do I want to tell with this record? What theme do I want to do? Who do I want to collaborate with? Um, like what's a cool way to do the album rollout, i.e., comfort food. And that, we'll get into that in a moment. But so in which case, I usually have just a list of photographers or just artists that I've befriended over the years, and if I have a particular vision for my record, you know I I kind of just brainstorm ideas, and I'll reach out to said artist or said photographer, and see if and bounce ideas and see if if there's a way to sort of meet the vision. Every project's different. Sometimes I kind of want to do something a little more abstract on the cover. Like I have no shortage of covers that, you could like hang them up in a museum and just look at them and sort of come up with your own conclusion as to what it means. Sometimes I want to do something a little more straightforward that just tells you right off the bat like what the record is and what it's about. Because I feel like the artwork is excuse me, the artwork is just as important as the music itself.
Right.
And I always envision, you know, if someone buys my album, like vinyl especially, and they want to like put it on their wall or hang it up somewhere, that, like I want it to be something cool that can just stand out on its own. And, just human nature, like when you go record digging, um, you know, like one of the things that most producers know, like the crazier the cover is, the more likely there's going to be some fire that you can go in and sample. And you know, I I really like the idea that someone can be going through the going through the bins at a record store, having never heard of me or seen me before, and pick up a record, look at it, and be like, "Oh, this looks cool," or "This looks weird," or "This stands out," and just having them hooked for that 1 second motivates them to go and listen or go and buy. And then, you know, if they like the music after that, then I've got them as a fan. If not, well, at least I got them to give me a try. So, I take I take a lot of pride and time in going through like the artwork process. And I really try to make sure it's something that fits the vibe and atmosphere of what I'm trying to do musically.
Cool, absolutely. Album art definitely is very important. One of my favorites from you is the Midnight After. I just love how that thing looks, and of course, the music is really dope too. Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, throughout your entire music career, Eloquent, what was one of the best memories you've had so far?
um I mean, there's definitely a lot of great memories. I think the first time I played overseas was a big one. Um, I mean, not I guess not to like talk bad about Toronto or whatever, but definitely when I play out in Toronto, like it's a notoriously hard place to
Oh,
um,
it is.
it's a tough place to get love. Um, I mean, most artists who aren't like super mega stars will attest to it. Great vibes, don't get me wrong. But I was sort of used to, like I was sort of used to being received a certain way. And the first time I went overseas, I did a show in Brighton, in the UK, and like the crowd wasn't like super duper like huge or nothing, but motherfuckers went crazy. And I'd never seen a crowd that hype for beats before in my life. And for the hour and a half that I was there, I mean, like that was the first time in my life I ever like felt like a rock star. You know, like motherfuckers wanted my autograph. Like bro, like I make beats. Like 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 I'm not like Bon Jovi or some shit, but but folks really, really made me feel like appreciated. And there's a number of shows after that in various parts of Europe that were the same, but that was definitely a big one for me. But I think out of everything, the day like I did an album in 2012 called The Scenic Route, and that was the first time I had ever been pressed on vinyl before, and that was always like one of my biggest bucket list goals. And I'll never forget the day that I came home from work that day, and there was like this huge ass box of records just like sitting in front of my door, and like I took a knife, cracked it open, and pulled it out, and I literally cried. You know, I guess for me, and when you sort of tell that to someone, it probably doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but for someone like me, and from where I came from, and and how many times people like didn't believe in me, like I'd pitch things with labels, and they said, no, we can't trust you to we can't trust you to sell any records, so we're not going to do it for you, until someone did believe in me. And that was kind of just a confirmation for me that like when you sort of set out to do something, and you sort of put everything into it, and that was sort of like one of the fruits of my labor, much like going on tour in Europe for the first time. That was sort of my moment to rub it in the faces of people who didn't believe in me, and yeah, and that was one of the first times in my life that I felt like, yo, like I'm an artist. Like I'm not just some guy who does it as just a hobby. Like I take my shit seriously, and here is sort of proof of it. And every record I've done that's been that's been pressed, like they're all special to me. But the first one, the first one is always, it's like your firstborn child. So like I really, really felt that. You talk to a lot of artists about their very, very first wax pressing, and a lot of them will tell you they got really emotional too. But yeah, that one just it's waterworks for me.
Dope, dope, man. So outside of the music, and of course you're a big kung fu movie guy. What else do you like? Do you like to do? I see the Batman in the back over there. You like a superhero fan, comic book guy? What do you do?
Um, in general, I'm not like a diehard comic book guy, but um, like growing up, um, like Batman the animated series. That's like my favorite show of all time, and and so I guess I can't go so far as to say like I'm a huge book guy, because there's a ton of books that I haven't read and so forth, but just the character of Batman has always resonated with me ever since I was a kid. And yeah, and sort of as I get older, and like one of my like I've got the full animated series box set over on the side. And over the last couple of years, and I also blame DiBiase for it too. He got me like hooked on collecting figures.
Oh,
So yeah, the studio is just full of just action figures from Batman and Naruto and
that's cool.
hella video game shit.
I got a Vegeta one right here for you.
I got that. Ooh, that's the Majin Vegeta too.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one. And yeah, and just filling up my crib, and like in like Batman's Batcave. My G has his whole supercomputer, and he's solving crime, but it's just full of mementos of shit that he'll beat the fuck out of Mr. Freeze, and then take his gun and put it on display. And I kind of liken my home studio as kind of my bat cave.
Well,
So
what do you see in Batman that you see in yourself?
he's always been very much he's very much a loner, and um, you know, like he I don't know it. I just find it fascinating. Like, this is a guy who has money and everything that most people would want, and it's kind of just not enough for him. And he's just really, really just dedicated to his work, and he puts his superhero shit over, over everything else. And in various parts of my life, like, I feel like I've put friendships and I've chosen music and shit over, like, friendships and job opportunities and other shit. And he kind of just has this code that he lives by, and he's just very disciplined with it. And I don't know, those stories just always hit me different. And maybe the fact that, you know he's a regular ass guy, he doesn't have superpowers. He's just a guy who, well, he can't compete with Superman, he can't compete with any of the other guys in the Justice League, but he's more disciplined, and he's just smarter than all of them. And somehow through it all, he's managed to stay alive and somehow be the most relevant out of all of them. So, I kind of liken it to myself. I mean, I'm not a classically trained musician. I don't have the resources that everyone does, but I kind of do the best I can to stay relevant, and I don't want to say compete, because I don't believe in competing with people in terms of music, but just sort of staying in the mix, you know. So I don't know. Those are some of the parallels I've sort of seen there, and frankly, he's just cool, man. Just
Simple enough, right?
beats, yeah, he just beats the shit out of people, man, and he's not like a Boy Scout, like like it's not enough for him to just throw someone in jail. Like, he has to make you feel it first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that animated series was so good, man. I always remember the episode where they first introduced that Clayface character.
Oh,
Y'all
that's a
remember that
top
one?
five episode.
Yes, top five, that one. And then there was another one that I really liked too. Always the episode where Bruce gets amnesia and he's at a work camp.
Oh yeah,
Remember that one? Yeah.
Yep.
I forget what the name was.
Yeah, I think my favorite one. There's an episode called "Perchance to Dream," which interestingly is kind of what I named my little, like, sub label.
Yeah.
And in that episode, like, he's chasing someone, and he gets knocked out. He wakes up and finds out that he's not Batman anymore, and the cave doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the big
Yeah,
hook in the end is, like, it's a whole Mad Hatter story. I mean, at a time in the early 90s when cartoon, like, superhero shit was very happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, that shit was dark and it was noir, and it always stuck with me as a kid.
Yeah. That stuff was.
Oh,
Yeah. I wanted to go and ask you. So we talked about Batman being an influence on you and so forth, and all your influences with music and stuff like that.
Oh, also,
Yeah.
also, fun story. I mean, if you dig through most of my records, I mean, you can find the names of various Batman episodes as song titles for many of them.
Yeah.
So that's your little trivia. Go through, you'll. I mean, there's a joint on Midnight After called "Appointment in Crime Alley." That's definitely an episode.
I remember that one. That was an epic one. Yeah, that was real epic.
My last tape, Bedtime Stories 2. I got a joint called Mad Love.
Yep.
That's an awesome episode. The first Batman, or the first Bedtime Stories, has a song called Year One.
Year One. Yep.
Yeah, and you can go through. I mean, there's a lot of those sprinkled in there. So
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was gonna ask you. You know, we kind of talked a little bit about Toronto scene and how hard it is to kind of like crack that nut as far as like fans and all of that stuff.
Right.
Were you really like when you were younger? Were you really into like the Circle and like Cardinal Official and Socrates? Was that a big influence on you?
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, like the forefathers of Toronto hip hop, yeah, all of those guys, Mathematic, shout out to him.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's my cousin actually.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, another fun fact. But yeah, but all those guys, like I grew up like a lot of certainly a lot of the hip hop that we got and had access to was at least up here, and I'm nearby Toronto. I mean, a lot of it was like, East Coast, like New York shit. Not quite as much West Coast stuff. But I mean, everyone knew Dre and Snoop and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like Toronto '90s hip hop definitely had its pockets, and yeah, I was definitely on a steady diet of it growing up.
Yeah. Do you feel that those artists get the love and the recognition now? Because, if you think about Canadian hip hop, and no offense to anybody, I think a lot of people's first, or what I'm going to call hip hop normies, right? Uh,
Right.
their I guess their image is Drake,
Mm-hmm.
right? And do you think that, at least locally, from your perspective, do you feel like the older guys get as much adoration or as much, props as Drake? Are they even in the conversation anymore? You know what I mean? So, um,
I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to. Now,
mhm,
you know, I will say this that if you're doing your like an objective Mount Rushmore of Toronto hip hop, Drake has to be there. Like no matter what, like no matter what you think about him, like you can't really tell the complete story of Toronto hip hop without talking about literally the biggest artist of all time from Toronto, right? But as far as like the OGs and so forth in the '90s, I mean, it's a little bit of a generation gap thing because a lot of the people who listen to Drake now are they're 16 or 20, like they're folks who were born in the '90s and kind of missed a lot of the stuff. So when I bring up Ghetto Concept or I bring up Socrates or Chaclair or Checkmate or Rascals or whoever, they don't. They're like who, you know. But among the folks who grew up on '90s hip hop, and interestingly, I find that you know I feel like they're. I really don't want to like diss Toronto or trash it or whatever. But I find that a lot of the OGs are, they're properly appreciated everywhere outside of Canada. Like, when folks go to Europe to tour or they go really anywhere. Like I did a show in 2018 in Brazil, and I went to Rio de Janeiro, and motherfuckers there know about Mathematic, they know about Claire, and that shit just like blew me away. And these are guys who are in their like early 20s and shit, you know. Um, so I mean, I guess for what I would deem as like the real hip hop aficionados, and many of them are at this point like in their 40s and so forth.
yeah,
Those guys know about IRS. They know about all those guys. For the, I guess, the more casual fan, dare I say, I mean, they know Drake. They probably know Cardinal. Um, and and there's a few other guys that they'll know, but you know, I also feel at this point Toronto doesn't have that same sort of defining sound or identity that it used to. Like
Why do you say that?
I I mean, but I mean, I don't think it's so much a Toronto thing as much as, like the the sounds of like 808 drums and trap and so forth. Like it's really big and it's really popping now. And so, you know, like it whether someone is from Toronto or from Chicago or from I don't know, Bolivia or some shit, like they're all like there's a lot of artists who are running with that general sound. Whereas, and I don't know, and maybe it's just my bias and my age showing, but I can't decipher a lot of it like without knowing exactly who the artist is.
Mhm.
Like back in the day, you listen to some East Coast New York shit, you knew exactly where it was from. When you heard that G Funk sound, you knew it was Cali.
Yeah.
When you heard that hyphy shit, I mean, it's in the Bay. And when you could always recognize like that Houston, uh, UGK, Bun B, Pimp C shit. you
Yeah.
know, and and I always loved that every sort of region had its own sort of defined sound. Like when I hear, you hear like drill now and like UK drill, and like you hear that beat and you can tell immediately where it comes from. And I feel like there's very little of it left since I think a lot of people are kind of hopping on one sound, and more power to them. I get it. Um, but yeah, I just don't feel like, at least Toronto specifically, doesn't have that same sort of defined sound that it used to.
Cool. So Eloquent, amazing artist, loves kung fu movies.
Right?
Big fan of Batman, especially the animated series. Personally, I like Teen Titans a bit more, but I'm just saying, for me.
Teen Titans is great, and
Tight.
shout out to them, man. They got De La Soul's music back from motherfucking Tommy Boy. So Teen Titans always has my respect.
Absolutely. Rich, anything else you want to say?
No, this was excellent, man.
It
Thank you
was.
for coming on and talking to us. We know you're super busy, so we appreciate you.
No, and thank you for having me. This was definitely a lot of fun.
Cool. Any
Yeah.
shout outs you want to give Eloquent before we head up out of here?
Um, I mean, shout out to you guys first again for having me. Um, I mean, I could spend the next 10 minutes shouting out and like any and everybody I can, but I mean, this ain't no award show, so I'll just say that if you listen to me or my music, or any of my friends in any capacity, much respect and shout out to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eloquent. Really appreciate it. That is it, guys. We're out of here. Peace.
Okay.
Peace.